this video, I'm breaking down the full architecture behind my Ableton Live solo performance set. This is what my live set looks like. And one important thing to notice is that the red box on screen shows exactly what I can see on my push. And this is so important so I'm not scrolling in between channels and track lanes, and everything is reachable and instantly playable and easy to navigate. So I have things basically divided into two. I have my vocals and I have everything else. And I have playback and utility. So in my playback, I have different drum stems, kick, snare, percussion, and effects. I've got bass, I've got synth, I've got samples, vocoder, carrier vocals, and I've got backing tracks for some songs, in case there's an emergency. Then in my utility group, I have my live vocals, and I also have tracks where I record my live set on as I'm performing. So the important thing to really look out for here is the routing. Notice that nothing goes to the master out. Everything goes to sends and returns. So I have a lot of my things going directly to sends here that you can see in the vocal looper, vocal chops, drums, live synth, etc. And then in the playback group, I have a lot of tracks going to the playback group. And then that playback group is going to the sends. And utility, either directly to sends, no output, or they're going to the utility group. They are going to the A and B return tracks. So in my A return track, I have different effects that I manipulate on my instrumental parts of my set. And then in my return track B, I have different effects that I manipulate for my vocals.
If you want to explore this live set, you can download this from the description below and develop it for your own performance. You can see that I'm playing my live set in session view, and each track is its own scene. With labeling the BPM, you'll notice that the BPM changes depending on the track that I play. I've labeled the key for reference if I ever need it. You can also see here that I have these different white tracks where I've labeled that I'm introducing a song or I'm saying something to the audience, and it gives me a moment to break, and I have that planned in my set ahead of time. This next tip about routing my audio and my MIDI to return tracks was a complete game changer for me. So let's take a look inside. This is where I can manipulate my music in one place without getting lost and buried within different channels and tracks and effect racks, etc. I just have two return tracks that I'm actively using here on my push in columns 7 and 8, and then here on my screen you can see they're at the very right hand of the red square. So for return A, which is my instrumental controller, I'm using this low EQ, this mid EQ, and this high end EQ. Sometimes I also use this low pass filter and this fade to gray. I don't really use the reverb that much, but it's there. And then this is a beat repeat device. I do use these at once. I might filter a song on the intro coming into it. In my vocal return rack, where I manipulate all of my vocals live on stage, I've got this Afro DJ Mac vocal rack, which I got online somewhere, and I think I edited it a little bit, but I have a whole video on the vocal side of this performance, which I'll link in this video. My instrumentals are broken down into the stems of each individual part of a song. And then I've got bass, synth, and different samples. And the reason why I broke this down, especially with the drums, is that I might want to build things live during the set. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So by having everything there, it gives me the opportunity to improvise and what I'm feeling for the set, or plan ahead on what I want to do. What's even interesting to me is that my live vocals are hidden, as are my live recording, but I really don't need to see them live. And so that's why they're hidden. I can see the audio coming through when we're performing, and I know that we're in the clear. Let's check out these drums live. These are samples that I've loaded into a drum rack that I trigger live during a set. And you can see here, it's just a little sample from the recording of the track. To access this channel on the push, I'll hit drums live, and if I'm in session view, I'll hit note, and now I can play my samples.
I've got my vocal chops here, and if I'm in session view, I'll hit note and layout if I need to. And I've got samples from a vocal part clipped into these really tiny small points and mapped to different pads in a drum rack, and then I play them in rhythm first, and then I improvise on them next. You can see here that I've zoomed in and sampled these little tiny elements across the board, and they're all set to trigger and just snap to the grid so that they'll be in time, and that it can be really fun playing these live and improvising and just finding happy accidents.
If you want to see this exact setup in a real life show, I've linked my performance from the vault during Art Week Mexico City in the description.
For my live synth, I'm using the synth within Ableton on the push, and I've just mapped it to the key of the song. You'll see here on my screen that I have these different words with a bracket saying arm off. This is ClyphX. ClyphX is a programming script that could be likened to Max for Live, except it uses almost no CPU. It's developed by Native Control, and what it does is automate different clips that I have. So I use it in two instances. I use it to arm the synth here. So if I'm playing the track before, where the synth is not armed, play the next track, and boom, it's armed. Let's look at what this looks like in utility. For ClyphX here, I have my A and B, which are my return tracks A and B, device reset. This is getting everything reset, tracks muted. Essentially, it works as another bandmate on stage. And this is really useful. So if I'm in controller, like the A rack for controller, and I am manipulating different effects here. You can see the low EQ, the mid, the high, or the low pass filter, etc. If I'm manipulating these in the track and that song is done, I don't want to have to go back to the macro effects here and set everything back at the default position. So I just use ClyphX and then go to the next track, and ClyphX resets it, and boom, everything is ready to go to start again. I have ClyphX set up in my preferences as a control surface, and you can download ClyphX for free. So just Google it. It was from Native Control, and then you set it up as a control surface, and boom, you're ready to go.
This is the secret behind the scenes part. So I have a backing track for some of my songs, and ideally I would have it for everything, so that if something went wrong with the stems, I just hit that backing track and it will go, and I'll perform and deliver the song, and the audience won't know the difference. So that is there. Everything is deactivated right now, but it's there for redundancy. For utility, I've got my live vocals. I've got this pitch reference for this one track called Morning when I am coming in on a blind entrance. It is an a cappella track with Vocoder. I set myself up by recording the initial part of my vocals so I can hear my key and I can hear the general tempo, and that way when I'm performing, I've got it down. So with the vocoder, I've explained it in the companion video to this video where I go through everything vocal related to this track. But real quick, it's here. I've got the carrier coming in from external on this audio track monitor in. The audio is coming from this carrier vocoder right next door. And post effects, the carrier vocoder. I have an analog instrument from Ableton, the default. And then in certain tracks, I've got MIDI mapping out my parts. And these are brought in from other songs, like copied and pasted in there. And this way I don't have to play the vocoder on a keyboard or another instrument. I can just deliver the song. Back in utility, I've got different click tracks. I've got ClyphX there. I've got references. These are for leveling. And if I have tracks in my set, in my stems that are coming in at different levels, I'll take them to a reference mix for what the vocals need to be at for their gain, or what different instrumental parts need to be at for the gain. And so that's very useful in that circumstance. I've got line checks. I'm not currently using these, but they're there for future proofing. I have also got my recording where I'm recording my live sets. When I'm doing that, I've got the audio coming in from the instrumental controller and audio coming in from the vocal effects routing, and then they're coming to this recording group, and everything is set up like that. Okay, I have a question for you. What is your buffer size? So with your buffer size, what you want to do is have it be the lowest possible so that you don't have latency or delay from the time when you are especially singing and then hearing a delay, but then when you hear it. I like to perform in 128 samples if I've got everything nice and tight. My older computer was a 2015 MacBook Pro, and that one I had to run on 256 samples. We want to get this as low as possible for a live performance so that you're not hearing yourself a moment after you're delivering something, because that could be jolting. So my advice is to start at 128 samples, and if everything works well, amazing. You're in the clear, go for it. If you're hearing hisses and cracks and things like that, bump it up to 256 samples. If you're still hearing issues, bump it up again to 512 samples for your buffer size. And we want to get it as low as possible. So what is your buffer size? Let's talk leveling. When you notice that different songs or the stems of different songs that you have sound louder or quieter than other songs that you bring in, we want to use a reference. I have references for the full mix and I have references for just the vocals. I can compare those to the stems, and the answer for fixing the leveling on different stems isn't adjusting the track fader. We want everything to stay pretty consistent. The answer is to adjust the clip gain itself. So let's just look at this one here. I'm in the clip gain and I can pull it up and down, and that would adjust my leveling so that I can get the track how I want it to be and not mess with the entire track fader for that one stem. This next tip has got your back. So what you do is you take screenshots of your settings. Here I've got screenshots from settings of an older rig with different sound card, different MIDI instruments, but I was running a similar set, and I've put this into a Google Doc that I've made available offline. And the beauty of this is that if you are performing in a place where there's no internet connection, you can't get an internet connection, and something happens, you can just pull this up and reference what settings things need to be at. And this also is helpful if you're working with someone else, like an audio engineer on stage helping you set up, or a friend, etc. You've got everything set up so you have your references there. One thing that was very helpful for me was having my vocoder set up that I could reference all of the routing. And this tip came from Laura Escudé, who is a master controllerist, and also DaVinci of Studio Sensei. He has also helped me build my live set. Those two are wizards behind this live set. So that's my full Ableton Live performance set architecture. Let me know in the comments below if there's an area in this video that you want a deeper breakdown on. And then also I have a companion video for the vocal part of this set, which you can watch here. In that video focusing on the vocals of this live set, I'm breaking down the live vocals, the vocoder, the effects, the looper, the signal flow and the routing, and how I control it all from push. So click that video next, and I'll see you there, and thanks for watching.